Hi everybody, and welcome back, and I hope everybody is enjoying their 4th of July weekend this weekend. I know this is going to be a long weekend for some of us. I know for me and my husband it is, as he will have both this day and tomorrow as well off for this weekend. And I just hope everybody out there is enjoying their 4th of July and being safe out there with those fireworks and on the lake and wherever we might be at the time enjoying this weekend. For this week's video, I will be doing this reference photo in a digital form. I will be using my sketchbook program that came with my ASUS laptop. I do not have a light pen to use with the program, which you can use one with. However, I do not have one yet, and so I will be just using my mouse to do everything with. And I will be randomly pulling this picture up within the image to use as a reference with that. So let's get started. Okay, so in this video we're going to be working on this reference photo of a mountainscape with a waterfall flowing down in front of it, with a sky, an orange sky background with some of the blue showing through in between. I'm not going to be doing this image exactly as the reference photo, as I'm using my sketchbook program, so some of the stuff is going to be off. There's going to be places where there may be something in the reference photo that I will not have in the original image, but I'm going to try to do my best to get it as close as possible, and hope everybody enjoys this video. Again, I'm using my sketchbook program that came with my ASUS laptop with Microsoft Windows 10 on it, and my mouse to do this work with. And so again, here, this is the reference image that I will be working from, and as you can see, I have the borders for my image that I will be working on larger than the actual image. And what I will be doing is, you can see here, is I'm going to be extending the image out to the edge of the picture that I will be working on. So the actual picture that I will be working on will actually be larger than the original image, as my background, my original layer will be the same. I will also be doing this in multiple layers. Some layers I will be doing several things on. Other layers will have other things will have their own layers, so that the way I can make changes to only those layers as I need to. And as you can see here, I'm just ever so often pulling up my reference photo to see where my mountains and my rocks and my water all are going to be located, drawing those lines in and checking them to make sure that they're in the right places, and then I pull my reference photo up again to make sure that the lines that I've extended out line up with the original reference photo. And now I'm choosing my brush size, and I used my color match tool to match the color as close as I could with the brush tool that comes with Sketchbook. And I'm just taking that color that it matched, and I'm just going in and filling in that sky, the background for the sky there, and just filling that in and just continuing to fill that in. And then I will be going back in over it. And as you can see with the Sketchbook program, once you lift up that brush and start a new stroke with it, the overlaying areas will get darker. So any areas that you want to be darker in Sketchbook, when working in Sketchbook, you'll want to let off of the brush and then go back onto the image to darken those areas. And also, in doing that, it kind of gives the image a little bit more depth and contrast with different colors going in there. And you can see where I've left the white for the blue background to go in there. Now I'm pulling up my reference photo to see if my areas are filling in good. Going in and seeing that the little bit of that orange was showing through in the back of the blue. Now I've used my color match tool again and tried to match the blue in the image to the one that I will be using, and going in and filling in that blue area. And then going back into the areas where it needs to be darkened up. Pulling that reference photo up again and checking it to see how my colors are matching and how close they are. And again, you don't have to be exact to the reference photo, you just want to get close. Again, continuing to pull up that reference photo and checking those colors and the location of everything to make sure everything is lining up, and checking to see what I need to put in there, what I need to darken, what I might need to lighten up, or what I might need to add. And going in there and just touching some areas up. Added some little clouds in at the back of the blue, where I saw some of the orange clouds were kind of showing over the blue background. Now I'm just using a little bit smaller brush. I've shortened my brush, and I don't know why, for some reason the program I used to capture the screen did not show all of my tool menus showing up as I was choosing different brushes and things. So what I did here is I just went in and made my brush smaller, matched the color again to the image, and then went in there and started filling in that mountain background. Just going in there and checking to see where all this orange, this brownish orange color needs to go in at. Now going over to the other one and filling all that in with the color that it needs. Again, continuing to pull up that reference photo over the image to check it, to see where I need to place things on the mountains, any color changes I need to make. Again, continuing to go back and use that color match tool to try to match the colors in the image within the sketchbook program. Again, going in and darkening up the areas and those mountains that I extended off to each side, because as they are going to be further into the background, they're going to be darker. Now I'm going in and with a darker orange, going in and putting some shading in on those mountains. Just putting the shade in the areas where I saw that there was shade, with the areas where it's darker. And then I will be going back over these again after a little bit and brightening up those areas that are brighter. Again, going in over and filling in these mountains, making them darker so that they look like they're further in the background and that they're shaded. Again, checking my reference photo, using my color match tool to try to match that darker area on the side of the mountain, trying to get it as close as I can to that color. Again, checking, trying to get all those darker areas in there to give it more of depth and more dimension. Going in and filling in the background there, and then I will be going in over that again and pulling that further out to the front. Again, going in and trying to darken up those mountains some so that they stand out more against those clouds, against that background. Defining that background a little more, darkening it up a little bit, defining those edges of the mountains. And right now it kind of you can barely see the edges and the tops of those mountains, and you will see that I will be going back in there and putting some stuff in and changing some stuff to bring those further out. Just kind of softening up those clouds some more. That blue, the blue of the sky showing through. Going in and putting in some highlights on those clouds where I saw where the clouds were a little bit whiter. Check in again to see where I saw the white parts or the fluffier parts of the cloud, the blurrier parts of the cloud. Checking to see where I need to go in and put some white highlights on the mountains. Again, just continuing to use that color match tool to try to match these colors that are in the actual reference photo. You can see there that now I'm going in and putting the highlights in over the mountains, and right now I've got the reference photo up and I'm just kind of tracing over the reference photo while I have the other layer turned on so that I'm not actually marking. It's actually making the changes to the actual image and not to the reference photo. You can see now where the white, where I went in and put the white down on the mountains in the background. Now I'm going in and putting in that darker color on those 4 mountains, the mountains that are in the front of the picture. Now I'm using an even smaller brush to go in and put some more detailing into this mountain. And then I will be going in, and I'm putting the shaded in area of this part of the mountain. And then I will be going in over the shaded area with several greens to bring out the trees that are on the side of the mountain. Okay, pulling up that reference photo to see where I need to add highlights or detail or dimension to it. Again, now I'm putting in some of that dark green to help highlight those trees. Again, darkening that up some more to show where there's actually greenery on the side of the mountain where there's trees. Putting in some green on the other mountain where there were a few places where there was some green growing on it. Pulling my reference photo up and checking it again, seeing where all I might need to go in and add more. Now I'm using a smaller brush to go in and bring out those trees on the side of the mountain a little more. Now I'm switching to a lighter green to kind of bring out to highlight those trees. Going in and putting in some brown in the trees areas where it was showing that there's part of the mountain showing through the trees. Going in and putting in the little lines showing some of the tree trunks up in the front. And a little path that's going up through there. And now I'm taking and going over the rocks that are in the water, filling those in, trying to match them with the colors that are in the image. Pulling up the reference photo again, seeing where my colors, what colors I need and what colors I need to fill in, darkening up the rocks that are in the water, putting the shadows on them where they had shadows at. Again, continuing, and once again, you always, no matter what you're working in, whether it's digital, colored pencil, acrylics, anything that you're working on, even just a regular sketch, you always want to have a reference photo, and you want to continue to refer back to that reference photo so that you can make sure that you have everything as close as possible. Some things you don't have to worry about, because if you don't have a hair, or if it's a portrait or a rock in the right place, if it's a landscape like this, no one's going to notice things like that. But if you don't have your proportions correct, your colors correct, your darks dark and your lights light, if you don't have your shadows and your lights in the right places and your contrast and all that right, those things are the things that count, and those are the things that matter. Those are what's going to give your image the depth and perception that it needs to make it look more realistic and make it look good. Okay, now I've gone in and I'm filling in that water, and then once I have the water shaded the way I need it shaded, then I will go in and I will start adding the waves and the shadows in the water. So now I'm darkening it up and going in and putting in the darker areas that are in the water and shading those in. Again, continuing to look at my reference photo to see where those darks are at, where those lights are at. Now I've switched back to the white to go in and put highlights and to put the ripples and the waves and the foam from it crashing down over the water, over the rocks and the edges. Putting in that water line where it shows the drop, and then going in and filling in the flow of that water flowing down over those rocks. Again, you can't see the cursor, but basically what I'm doing right now is the areas where I see the white, where there are waves or foam, or just basically the white areas where the water is crashing up on the rocks. I'm just going over those on the reference photo, and in doing so, since as I have the actual layer turned off, I'm just turning that layer on as I need it while I'm staying on the actual image that I'm working on. And then I'll turn that image off every so often. I'll turn off the reference photo, and where I can see what's been done to the actual photo and the actual image. Okay, now I see that I've got all that in, and I'm going to extend that over into the areas where I extended the image up, where it went off of the page. Going in and filling in those areas where it needs to go around the rocks. pulling up that reference photo. And again, I'm continuing to, all I'm doing is just turning the option for the reference photo to be visible off and on while I'm working on the piece, so that I can compare it to the actual reference photo. And there it is. I'm just going back in, basically just going in anywhere where I see that I need to add more lines for the water where it's crashing down over the sides, or any waves or ripples, putting in that water line along the border, along the edges of the land and the foreground image, putting some highlights in on the mountains where I saw where there was some pathways going up through those mountains, and just continuing to work on it, pull up that reference photo and check it to see where there's things that I could add to make the image even more. Now I'm going back in over those mountains in the foreground, as I was telling you, as I told you earlier, that I would be doing later on in the piece, where I would take and I would go back in over the mountains in the foreground and be adding some more highlights and details to those to bring those further out of the picture, so that they stand out and over those over that background in the sky background, so that you can see those mountains better. Again, continuing to darken up those areas where I see that the mountain needs to be darker. And again, with this sketchbook program, once you have a color set, like again, all you have to do is just continue to layer over the original color that you used, and it will just continue to darken those areas up. Now I'm switching to a lighter color to go in and define those edges of the tops of these mountains, and then I will be going back in with an even lighter color to bring out those really bright, warm orange colors on the tops and sides of the mountains, and to bring out those highlights. Again, using that reference photo to kind of just see where I need to go in to put those in at. Again, I'm working with the reference photo on and going over the actual image so that I can make sure that I'm getting these highlights in the right places that they need to go. Again, continuing to leave that reference photo up so that as I'm putting in the foreground, I'm getting it in exactly the right place where it needs to be. And then I will turn off the reference photo so that I can see the actual image in the background. And now you can see where I've gone in with a lighter orange and kind of highlighted those mountains at the tops where it had a darker you can see, as I'm doing right now, I'm still going in and filling in those highlights on those mountains, bringing out those brighter colors.